is House Bill 86, removal of county officers, election code violations. It's a white bill, and I see Ms. Secretary's here, sort of. This came out of the Management Audit Committee, so is there anybody from Management Audit here? Anybody from Management Audit? Don't say anything. Ms. Secretary, you want to help us with this bill? Nobody else seems to care about it. Welcome, sir. Welcome, Mr. Rubino. All right,
Thank you,
microphone
Mr.
on.
Chairman.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Chuck Gray, the Wyoming Secretary of State. Today, I'm joined by Joe Rubino, our Policy Director and Counsel. And we're going to be talking about 26 LSO 251, removal of county officers, election code violations. Again, as we talked about with 26 LSO 250, entirely supportive of this bill. This bill came out of the working group, which examined the conduct of the Weston County Clerk, the very serious conduct of the Weston County Clerk, specifically surrounding the governor's review and submittal of a verified petition submitted by citizens of Weston County in December of 2024. The governor's office in testimony during the interim noted that because the false post-election audit, which was raised by our office during the governor's review of this petition, was not explicitly mentioned on the face of the petition itself, but rather under a vague reference to issues in the 2024 election. And this sort of feeds into some of the points I raised during the 2025 interim, which we raised in our initial findings and report regarding the Weston County Clerk's submittal of a false post-election audit in response to the verified petition submitted by concerned citizens of Weston County, who specifically cited issues related to the 2024 general election, of which a documented and known issue was the submittal of a false post-election audit. It was clear that the false post-election audit was a known issue and fit squarely within the broad allegations of misconduct alleged in the petition. And you know, what this does is that it makes it very clear, as you look at the bill, the following persons may submit a verified complaint to the governor against a county officer under the subsection alleging misconduct or malfeasance in office. And it lays out those amortized individuals so that we don't have this issue that we had last time where we had to go through 2 different complaints over a 15-month period to actually get where we wanted to go in terms of getting accountability. And so that's what this bill does, is it lays out who can submit these allegations of misconduct or malfeasance, because the first time around, because the citizens of Weston County didn't necessarily explicitly put the post-election audit in the complaint, it became sort of a way for the governor's office to say that they couldn't do anything on that issue, even though there was within that complaint a broad statement of her overall misconduct over time, and we believe that catch the false post-election audit. But because of that, we had to come back to do a second complaint after the hearing in September of last year. The second complaint was done, and then finally 15 months after the actual misconduct, we got some accountability. And so this bill sort of lays out some of the other folks that can issue complaints regarding the conduct locally there. So very supportive of this bill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Questions for Mr. Secretary? Any questions from the committee? Senator Steinmetz, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one. So it looks like before it had to be a verified complaint of qualified electors or the Board of County Commissioners. So is this just one elector, or it looks like now we're changing it to one elector? How did that work before? How many electors, or was it just one elector could bring the complaint? How did that work?
Ms. Secretary.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it was one elector or a group of electors. It could be either. You want to add anything to that?
Okay,
It was either,
thank you.
but they had to be from the county. So if you weren't from the county, you couldn't issue a complaint when you might have intimate knowledge. And this still cabins that you have to be a qualified elector in the county, the Board of County Commissioners in the county, or the Secretary of State if the complaint is against the county clerk and the alleged misconduct or malfeasance in office for a violation of the Wyoming Election Code of 1973. So Title 22.
Anybody else? Senator Boner.
Okay, so yeah, just a little bit more further discussion on the qualified electors. So in this case, say you're talking about a concern with the way the House District 1 race was conducted, and you live in Crook County, but there's a problem in Weston County, both under status quo, and if this bill were to pass as is, somebody from Crook County, even though you can make an argument that they're affected because it's their house district that they're in, they would not be qualified to file a complaint. It'd have to be somebody from Weston County in both circumstances, where they pass the bill or not.
Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, thanks for that question. Yeah, you would have to either be in one of three boxes: an elector from the county, the Board of County Commissioners in the county, or the Secretary of State, if it was a county clerk. So it lays out that we can, the governor's office said, look, they pointed out that we weren't able to issue any allegations, and they, pointed out that didn't make a lot of sense. And the legislature agreed with that. So this bill adds in cases of the election code, the Secretary of State. That's really what this bill does.
Senator Boner.
And a slightly different question. So the governor's problem with the initial complaint is that they didn't specifically say, according to statute such and such. Now, was that in your complaint then it seems like the problem there wasn't that, the people who were issuing the complaint weren't qualified electors, is that they didn't say the right thing exactly. Is that understanding correct? And if so, what would this bill change that? I'm wondering if maybe you said the exact right things, or the Secretary of State would be in a better position to, say the right things and make sure you check all the boxes legally. Is that the idea?
Mr. Secretary.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, let's go back to the timeline for the Weston County experience. November of 2024, the potential misconduct occurs. November, it was actually the day before Thanksgiving. So I think it was like November 24th of 2024. Weston County electors filed a complaint with the governor's office. The governor proceeded to take about 7 months with that complaint. We issued at the end of the legislative session in 2025 a report with all of our findings, but it was not a complaint because at that time and under current law, we could not issue a complaint. So we issued our findings, which we promised we were going to do. And in addition, we issued a recommendation that she should be removed from office pursuant to Wyoming law. But the nexus point was the original complaint the day before Thanksgiving in Weston County. Then fast forward to, I believe it was May, the governor's office declines to take action against the Weston County clerk. The Management Audit Committee then begins their own investigation, exhibiting legislative oversight over the situation, which was one of the great moments of legislative oversight that I've seen in the last 10 years that we did in collaboration with them. That hearing occurs, I believe it was in late August or September. We laid out the false post-election audit, and candidly, I think the seriousness of the false post-election audit began to click at that point. The governor's office claimed at that point that because the false post-election audit was not expressly amortized in the original complaint from the Weston County electors, that they couldn't take any action on it, even though the complaint did, in the middle of it, right smack dab in the center, said that her overall conduct needed to be examined, which was a catch-all over her entire conduct. They, at that hearing, because there was a lot of consternation at that hearing, Ms. Anderson, there was a question asked by one of the great members in that committee saying, if you did have a qualified complaint on the post-election audit, would you examine that? And she said yes. Within a few weeks, electors from Weston County issued that qualified complaint. And then they took another 2-3 months on it and finally took action, asking the Attorney General to pursue removal proceedings. I believe it was in November of 2025 or somewhere in that range. And I'm sure you saw the headline, or maybe you didn't, last Friday, that was finally issued. So we're at, whatever, 15 months. So, this would allow us to issue a complaint, which in this case, we had intimate knowledge. Electors in Weston County, they were very concerned, but we were the one administering the post-election audit. So it would have been helpful if we had been able to explain the conduct, because we had intimate knowledge of one of the key issues regarding the Weston County Clerk's potential misconduct, excuse me.
Anybody else? Senator Dockstader.
Mr. Secretary, I'm trying to decide, do we define what a county officer is? Does that get a little fuzzy when we include commissioners as well? How do we define specifically who we're trying to make this, take this corrective action with?
Ms. Secretary.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I mean, this is in Title 18. And so the relief valve, when there are issues in counties, has always been this complaint form. And that's pre-existing this statute. All you're adding is, in the case of the county clerk, that the Secretary of State, in addition to all other officers, a qualified elector or the Board of County Commissioners, in the case of a county clerk, and again, the whole purpose of the Secretary of State in the context of elections is to provide oversight over the counties, that they can also issue a qualified complaint. But this process is in existing statute. It's there in 18-3-902, that it can be any county officer that the complaint is issued against, and it could be qualified electors of the county or the Board of County Commissioners. So this just adds, in the case of the county clerk, I know it's a little confusing because they cross out on page 1 the original amortized list, and then they move it to page 2. But this is an existing process and statute. You'll see their county officer is in existing law. So, I mean, I understand if you guys want to look at that more, but this is a process in existing law. And the Secretary of State, you'll see in Roman 3, can only issue the complaint if it's against a county clerk. And the alleged misconduct or malfeasance in office is for a violation of the Wyoming Election Code of 1973. So it can't just be, I hear from a qualified elector of that county that the clerk didn't handle budgeting right. I don't have any oversight over that. I get complaints all the time from qualified electors about different things, but I couldn't issue a complaint on that. It would have to be on the election code, which is where my express duties of oversight over the county clerks, where that is.
Senator Dockstader. Oh, thank you very much. Anybody else? Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Secretary, thanks for being here this morning. I don't think this bill corrects what Senator Boner was talking about, and maybe I'm just waking up on a Monday morning. The original language, if you go to paragraph A at the bottom of page 1, says that a verified complaint of qualified electors. We strike that language out of this bill. That doesn't specify in the county. It just says a qualified elector can send a verified complaint along with the Board of County Commissioners. You go over to page 2 and it says now a qualified elector in the county. So if a Crook County voter had issues with a Weston County situation, does this restrict it further? It feels like it does to me. Maybe I'm misreading that.
Ms. Secretary.
Well, I'll give it to Mr. Rubino here to lay that out, but I can tell you that the governor's office, when interpreting the statute, said that it had to be somebody from the county. So I think that's a great amendment. I think you should. I mean, I think especially in a county clerk, which I think a Crook County clerk should have been able to issue a complaint on the Weston County clerk because, they had concerns on that district too. On the other hand, when the Crook County clerk administered their side of the House race and there wasn't issues. So that's the other side of it. But I can tell you the way this has been interpreted from our experience has been that it has to be from the county. But I'm fine with if you want to open that up. We were just trying to cabin this bill, but Mr. Rubino, do you have anything to add on that?
Mr. Rubino.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Landon, I think the secretary is absolutely correct. I think that the modification on page 1, line 16, which was existing statute, it's now stricken out. The modification, the structure of the sentence is that of the county, I believe the historic interpretation has been that of the county modifies both of qualified electors or the Board of County Commissioners. Because read in, it says of qualified electors of the Board of County Commissioners of the county. But correct, if that would be a policy question for the committee, if on page 2, line 14, it would be striking 3 words in the county.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I mean, the other way to look at it, and he's laying out the legal interpretation. I mean, in order to be a qualified elector of the county, like you said, of the county, the interpretation has been that's modifying as well of qualified electors, you know, that you would have to be from the county. And that's the way it's been interpreted. At the very least, I think we should seek clarity because they did not allow complaints from Crook County electors regarding the Weston County Clerk. They were very clear on that. So if and that's another thing we could solve with this bill. So, you know, they did not allow complaints from Crook County regarding the Weston County Clerk. So,
Mr. Senator Landon.
So, Mr. Chairman, and then you get into, you know, the flip side of the coin is more might not be better. I mean, anybody can file a complaint for any reason at any time against any county officer in any county. Then you get into that sort of discussion, which, you know, thank God, I don't think we want to do that, but wouldn't that be a concern, Secretary?
And
So
Mr.
that-
Landon, Mr. Secretary, just hold on 1 second. Yeah, I think that your point that maybe you need to have a nexus of some sort, but Senator Boner and yourself brought up the fact that House districts cross county lines, Senate districts do. There's also statewide elections, which can be affected, you know, Katie by the door. So it's kind of, you have to have think about a nexus for the complaint. If it's about a statewide election, then perhaps, but Mr. Secretary, welcome to comment.
well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I think you could build in more situations. Like you said, the issue is how to word it and how to get it, how to get it there. I mean, you know, if you're from an adjoining county, when there's a House district that crosses counties, I mean, you can build tens, hundreds of different situations. If you're on a statewide, the candidate that was wronged, you know, you can imagine if there was a candidate running for statewide office and they were wronged by the county clerk and they didn't live in that county, I think they should be able to file a complaint as well. But this bill is really getting at what the committee focused on, which is this specific instance, which is that it really didn't make sense to the committee that our office couldn't do anything official in terms of the complaint in regards to the conduct of the county clerk when we were the ones that had that intimate knowledge. And that's what we're trying to get at in this bill.
Okay, anybody else? I have a kind of a question. Mr. Secretary, so as I recall, the Joint Interim Corporations Committee was meeting throughout the interim at the same time. And we had elections on our plate, lots of different things. Why did this end up in management audit and then be on the shoulders of something that's called a working group? But that was a subcommittee of management audit. And I'm looking at the interim topics for corporations and the interim topics for management audit. Management audit doesn't have any election things in there. Interim topic request from last year. So I'm just trying to understand why this went the route that it did.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you know, I was intimately involved, but, you know, I wasn't a member, but I guess I know you're disappointed by it. You've said it a couple times. I think for one, corporations had a pretty heavy lift. And there was a lot of consternation on the number of election bills that came out of that first meeting up in Lander. So why would we plop on an election investigation, of which came out of that 4 or 5 other bills, And management audit, as you know, in state law, has a broad investigatory authority. That's the purpose of it, is to provide oversight of the executive branch. And bills that come out of that are consistent not only with the code, but I would argue when you look at the management audit submission to management council, there's a blanket, I believe it's priority number 1, which says investigations of executive branch agencies or something like that. And so there's a blanket sort of authority, not only in the management council request, but also in the code. And the code supersedes the management council request as well, although I think it was in the management council request. But the code says that their whole purpose is to engage in oversight of the executive branch. And the inciting event was the fact that the governor's office declined to take action in, I believe it was May, after the management council meeting. And in that declination to take action, they totally ignored the false post-election audit, which was very upsetting. To not even have, and they're going to say, look, the reason we didn't acknowledge it is because it wasn't in the amortized complaint, which gets back to this bill. It would have been if we had been able to issue one, because it really was the inciting event where really the line was crossed. I mean, everything before that wasn't great, but it was a simple, everything before that wasn't great, but they were errors, and errors, while there needs to be accountability for them, they do happen. But when you had the false post-election, you crossed the line into a whole different territory. When you had 21 ballots where the county clerk did not ascertain that when she looked at a ballot image that the machine didn't count them correctly. I mean, the county clerks in our hearing in the management audit committee even acknowledged that boggles the mind. And so that's the inciting event. And the fact that in May you had this declination to act from the governor that didn't describe, even mention, totally ignored the false post-election audit. I think that the management audit committee took it up, and I think the corporations could have as well. But you had a full plate, and at that point, I think you guys were pretty ramped up for the second meeting. We're pretty close to getting that all together, which, as you know, the second meeting, if you don't take action at the second meeting, there are only 3 meetings. And so you can't get a bill done. So just from a timing perspective, it really made sense, I think, for the management audit committee to take it up. And not only when you look at the statute, but when you look at the blanket submission to the management council, I think it was more than appropriate.
Mr. Secretary, did you ask corporations to take it up?
Mr. Chairman, I encouraged the House, either corporations or management audit or you, whatever you wanted to do, I was fine with. And so whether it was corporations or management audit, I just wanted to get it done. And Ms. Simmons came up here last time and said that, this was all a fait accompli and everything was known. You look in May, you had a statement from the governor's office saying, that they were declining to act. It didn't mention the false post-election audit at all. It was totally ignored. I mean, and so I felt a duty to get to the truth, because basically it was not being gotten to. And so I think it was one of the greatest moments of our administration, was getting justice in this case.
I'll bet you do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Senator Dockstader.
Follow up to that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, I'm not sure that I was clear as to where corporations missed on the invitation. Was it just directly out of your office straight to management audit?
Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, there was no invitation from our office. We communicated to the legislature our concern with the declination to act from the governor's office, and the management audit committee took it up. Corporations could have taken up, but it didn't. So.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one more question, and it's changing the subject. On page 2, when we're giving the Secretary of State the ability to issue a complaint, do you believe that would take care of those cross-boundary races? For example, a Crook County person, could they come to you and say, hey, we see a problem with this race, you could look into it, and then file your complaint off of that, or a statewide candidate or something like that? Or do you think there would need to be other language to address that? Do you think you would have the latitude to deal with someone that comes in from another county?
Ms. Secretary?
Mr. Chairman, I think, you know, if the secretary were diligent, yes, I mean, and we would. But, you know, I don't know about future ones, whether they would, there's been a lot of sort of, I don't know how they would handle it. It's a perspective question. I got a lot of calls from Crook County saying that they felt disenfranchised, and there were a lot of electors from Crook County that were upset that they couldn't issue a complaint. I can tell you that, because they felt they were wrapped up into this. I mean, how about Speaker Nyman? He couldn't issue a complaint, and he was the candidate in one of the races that was affected. So, you know, I think you could amortize that situation and add it to this list. The question is how to word it. I think it's a challenging one. You know, when there's a House race that bleeds into another county, electors from the other county could, you know, you got to legalese that. But I certainly think that would be fine. I think Secretary of State's office also could maybe be one of the folks monitoring that as well under this bill. But obviously, it depends on who the secretary is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, well, let's move on. Would the governor's office care to jump in, or you guys? We're glad you're here. We like you. We like Secretary too. Welcome. Is your microphone on? Green light?
Yeah.
Okay, pull it close. They don't seem to be working as well today. Have you guys noticing that? So,
Well, let me
yeah.
know if I need to speak up.
yeah, just
can be
get close.
soft-spoken.
That's most important.
Chairman Case, my name is Elizabeth Stefani. I'm the special counsel for Governor Gordon. And just wanted to provide some color from our office on some of the issues.
Welcome.
Sounds good. So I can just jump right into it. I think there's 2 points that have come up based on the secretary's testimony. I think the first, just to provide our perspective on the statute as it's written. We've taken a narrow reading of the statute because the remedy of removing elected officials, in our view and the governor's view, is pretty extreme and serious. And so, you know, we've recognized the parameters of the statute, and that's how we've proceeded with some of our investigations and the complaints we've gotten. So just so you know, that's how we've approached this. We have no objections to the changes that are proposed. And just wanted to reiterate that the governor has deep respect for the voice of the people. So that's been, you know, a strong value in approaching each of these complaints, each of these investigations, respecting the voice of the people. And I think that bleeds into the second point, which is, you know, this definition of qualified electors. Those people elected the county officer. And so, you know, we think that it makes sense to have the people who elected the county officer up for removal be the complainants. But again, we don't have any objections to including the Secretary of State for complaints that are specific to a county clerk running an election.
Okay.
So,
Any questions? Any questions? Looks like you got off easy.
okay. If you're curious also, we did find the definition of county officers, so I can go through
Go
who this
ahead.
applies to. Okay. So in Title 18.3.102, it just lists out county assessor, county clerk, of course, county commissioners, county sheriff, county surveyor, county treasurer, and county coroner. So if that provides some background on who would
County
be,
surveyor.
yes, it's included here in the county officer's definition. So you can look at it
That's the
yourself.
First one for me.
18.3.102A is what we were able to find. So just
Okay.
for some background information, if it's helpful.
Yeah. There may be another definition. But appreciate that very much, Ms. Stefani. Any more questions for Ms. Stefani? Senator Dockstader. Oh, am I pronouncing your name right?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Stefani, we've been through this. It seemed like there was statute in place to handle the situation before. Is it your thoughts out of the governor's office that we need these changes?
I think, she said, now it seems really loud. That they're not opposed to these changes. Go ahead, Ms. Stefani.
Yeah, Chairman Case, Senator Dockstader, we are not opposed to these changes. In the cases that we've received complaints, I think the process has worked. We've respected the existing parameters of the process and tried to be very cognizant of the statutory constraints that exist. And so if it's the will of this legislature to expand those constraints, we don't have an objection. I think we would just caution that it's important to be thoughtful as you expand the power of the governor under this statute, because again, it is a pretty extreme remedy to remove an elected official from office. I think that's basically the gist of our perspective on the matter.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Stefani. Appreciate it. Appreciate the governor's office. Give them our best. County clerks. Ms. Simmons. Ms. Herman, come on up. Mr. McLaren, you coming up? Got a county commissioner lurking in the back of the room. He's staying close to the door. Ms. Simmons, why don't you go first?
Gail Simmons, Civics 307. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Civics 307 is a nonpartisan nonprofit focused on civic engagement, and I oppose this bill. And I promise not to conflate hand counts with auditing this time. House Bill 86 does one thing. It adds the Secretary of State as an authorized complainant to the governor for removal complaints against a county clerk. When the allegation is misconduct or malfeasance tied to a Wyoming election code violation. The bill does not change the removal process after a complaint. It does not add new standards. It does not add screening. It does not add clear definitions. It only expands who can trigger a removal case. This matters because county clerks are independently elected county officers. County voters already have a direct path to the governor through a verified complaint by a qualified elector. County commissioners, also independently elected, also already have a verified complaint path. Those are local accountability tools, and they already exist. Adding a statewide political office as a complainant bypasses the county. It also expands the Secretary of State's reach in a way the public should view cautiously. A chief election officer role includes guidance, training, and coordination. It does not require a new removal trigger over county officials. Supporters will say this strengthens accountability. I do not see a gap that this bill closes. When Wyoming creates new authority, it should be because existing tools fail. Here, the existing tools already reach the governor, and the attorney general already prosecutes if the governor directs. And in this case, he has done so. HB 86 adds political leverage, not improved governance. And I want to address a couple of things. First, any intimate knowledge that the Secretary of State's office had could have been conveyed to the Weston County Board of County Commissioners for them to take that up. It did not require them to go directly, and then it goes back to the county. Also, nothing stopped a single Weston County elector from a follow-on complaint. Oh yes, that's exactly what happened. And so now we're in the process as it currently exists, and it's working. I also want to remind, this is the removal of a position. This isn't an indictment of the process. There are separate processes for that. This is removal of a duly elected officer. And I went back and looked, and as of September of 2022, which includes those who registered at the ballots in August, there were 3,000 891 electors in Weston County. It only requires one of them, not anybody in Crook, because this isn't about the legislative race. This is about their duly elected county officer. Any one of those nearly 4,000 people could put in a complaint, and they did. So I ask you again, this adds political leverage, not improved governance. Please reject this bill, and I stand for questions.
Questions for Ms. Simmons? Any questions? I'm not seeing any. Please, I've got some.
Oh.
So Ms. Simmons, help me to speculate here. I think we're seeing this bill because of mainly because the secretary and the governor don't see eye to eye and haven't, and they're in a competitive space, and that and frankly, I've seen that the Weston County flap, it was a real flap. I kind of get that. But on the other hand, I think it started out being kind of innocent errors, and then people started arguing about the small fine points of it, and people got dug in. And so I'm kind of like trying to speculate if there had been a more collaborative relationship in our top two elected officials, would we have come down this road? How do you think if there was a more collaborative relationship, it would have unfolded, the whole Weston County, whatchamacallit?
Mr. Chairman, I think there were two things. I do think the animus that exists is a real kind of underlying theme. But I also see this as a political football, kicking this dead horse over and over and over again. I agree with you. Really, really bad optics in that case. However, I see this no longer being about what an individual did, and it is now about what political talking points and positions can we continue to get out of that dead horse. So I think that there is some of that, and it's regrettable, and we are coming up to this is coming into election season, and I see that playing in not just at the top five level, but kind of all the way through in the legislative races, in the county races, where it's literally becoming campaign talking points instead of governance, because this is not needed for good governance. The safety valve is there and it works, and it may have taken longer than wanted, but it worked.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Herman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Committee. My name is Marguerite Herman with the League of Women Voters. And I endorse a lot of what Ms. Simmons said. I'll try not to repeat any of it, but as opposed to not doing any good, I think it actually does harm. And that's by adding that third origin of the complaint. This is removing a duly elected official from office. And what it does is empowers people who elected that person, empowering them to register a complaint to remove them. Not someone from another county, not a statewide official, coming in and removing your clerk. And I think that's an important thing to preserve. Certainly the qualified elector can seek assistance from the Secretary of State, can be assisted, can collaborate, can confer, and which happened and perfected the complaint, and which hit the points that apparently were the turning point and the thing that helped the governor's office find the thing the thing to study. So, you could say qualified elector, with the assistance of the Secretary of State. But I think the proper sources for the action are people in that county who elected that clerk, the people being served by that clerk. I could say that I live in Laramie County. If a Secretary of State, this or any other Secretary of State, tried to come in and remove my clerk that I elected, I'd be very concerned. And I just think the current parties of interest have standing to make the complaint. They can confer and get intelligence, whatever strategies from the Secretary of State. But I just, that is not a proper source for the complaint itself. And I think, I think the system did work. And I think, whatever you think of the governor's first pass at it, I think the second one, which was filled out, more specific, whatever you want to say, was got the action that, or the attention that was desired. And we're, as Ms. Simmons said, it worked. And so I think to add another out-of-county statewide official as a source that actually does damage to the process. It could insert politics into it, It's potential that is not welcomed by counties.
Thank you, Ms. Herman. Questions for Ms. Herman? Thank you very much. Anybody else in the audience wish to testify on this bill? Anybody else? Do we have anybody online that would like to testify on this
No,
bill?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ms. Secretary, we'll give you another bite at the apple.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to respond to a couple of these points. First, that the system worked. This system of having accountability shouldn't require some sort of Odyssean sort of follow through that occurred over 15 months. The reality was when the initial complaint response was issued in May, we had no idea why the false post-election audit wasn't mentioned, and they wouldn't talk to us about it. If the committee had not been convened in
Which committee?
the Management Audit Committee, we would have never had that testimony regarding why they did not examine the false post-election audit. It was not mentioned at all in the letter they issued on this, and we would not have gotten the justice that we got. So just because you have one situation where, because there was follow through over a 15-month period, which is way too long, that doesn't mean that we can't improve this system. And so I really push back against the idea that that the system, that there isn't any need for improvement, and we should just say, well, as long as we get the end result, doesn't matter whether it takes 10 years, that we don't need statutory changes around the margins. I think that flies in the face of what good legislating is. The second thing I wanted to respond to is your question and some of the underlying suggestions there, that an animus was really the spark of this issue between the governor and I. I want to be clear. For me, I'm always about accountability, and it's not about animus. It's not about personality conflicts. When we had a real issue and then they took 8 months to issue their conclusions and didn't even mention the false post-election audit, that's an issue. It has nothing to do with animus or personalities and I think that if we hadn't been saying it from the rooftops, nothing would have happened. And I really think that it's not about animus for me. It's about the issues. Always has been. So
Thank you, sir. Committee, you heard testimony. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, could I have a follow-up?
Oh, sure you can.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, may I have a follow-up?
Yeah.
Mr. Secretary, I'm trying to understand, Mr. Chairman, why we're adding the Secretary of State's office to this when we do have the governor and the county commissioners in place.
Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, we don't have the governor currently. Currently, it is the Board of County Commissioners or electors from the county. The Management Audit Committee deemed that it did not make sense to not have a path in statute for the Secretary of State, which is the chief election official of the state of Wyoming. And according to the Wyoming State Constitution and Title 22 of the Election Code, exhibits oversight over the county clerks, that it did not make sense to not allow them to issue complaints on county clerks, specifically cabined to that one situation where the Secretary of State has intimate knowledge. I wasn't going to, I had to be careful in terms of my communications with qualified electors about the active investigation. And so this idea that we're going to be having this collaboration with qualified electors on a false post-election audit when we're engaging in an active investigation. That is, I think it's absurd. And so what this bill does is it says that in the one area where the Secretary of State exhibits oversight, which is the election code, that they can issue complaints as well over the county clerks, which are the local sort of purveyors of the election code. But the Secretary of State is supposed to be providing oversight. So that's what the bill does. And it wasn't really me that asked for it. I'm supportive of it, but it was the committee. It wasn't really me. I think it's a great update to the bill. I mean, I'm not running for reelection, so I'm not going to be the one that's utilizing this. But I think it's an important thing for our state, important improvement to the election code. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Anybody else? Nothing online is shown up. So, committee, you've heard the discussion. What is your pleasure? I think I got it first by Boner. So discussion on the bill.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator, go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we first came in, I was kind of skeptical of this bill. And, I think we have to be careful anytime we have a situation to make a correction based on one situation. However, after thinking it through just a little more in the good discussion we've had today, I think it makes sense to add the secretary for the reason that our elections have changed so much. Before we were so by county, everything was by county lines. But now we're doing redistricting and we have split districts and we have statewide candidates that may need the secretary's help in this area. And I think we still have that important process where it's the governor who is taking care of whether, the complaint, whether they would actually move to remove an elected official or not, and the attorney general and all of those things. We're just adding one more person with a little oversight in this area. And so for those reasons, I've changed my mind on this bill because of the fact of how our elections have changed over the years.
Thank you, Senator. Anybody else want to speak? Anybody else? Personally, I think this bill's kind of feeding into a dispute. I don't think that's really a good Wyoming way. I also come back to, I'm not sure in the big picture of things there was real harm done. The election results were corrected and stood in a timely way. I do think elections are chaotic and but if we take time and get the results right, that's what's important. And I think that's pretty much what happened. I think most of the malfeasance is kind of covering up tracks maybe and not admitting errors. And, I don't think this does anything. And I think it feeds this dispute within our top 5 elected officials that I'm uncomfortable. I don't even think the time is right to carefully analyze it. There's so much animosity, very disappointing. So I can't support this. Senator Dockstader.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I will be opposed to it. I'm concerned that we didn't have this bill ran through our joint committee in the initial process. And with that, not having it gone through one of the main committees, I'll be a no.
Okay. Well, let's call the roll, I think, unless Senator Bonner, you. Okay, that's good. Let's just vote and.
Mr. Chairman, this is a roll call vote for House Bill 86. Senator Boner.
Aye.
Senator Dockstader.
No.
Senator Landon.
Senator Lanham left a proxy of no. I think he heard all the direct testimony, just at the very end of the secretary.
Senator Steinmetz.
Aye.
Chairman Case.
No.
Mr. Chairman, that's 2 aye, 3 no.
Okay. Right now, I'm not sure what we have on our plate or what we'll do on Wednesday. In terms of an interim topics meeting, it has been proposed by our good friends down the hall that we do it Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, at noon. I'm ready to go with that, if that's okay. That seemed to work best for them. So absent, you guys want to try for something else? We'd like all the people to meet, and we'll try to have a meeting in one of the bigger rooms, I suppose. We'll need a little bit more room than this one, I think. Last year we had it in their room, which is bigger. All right. Hey, have a great day. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.